Performance Max, Dynamic Search Ads, and now AI Max. Google keeps giving us new tools, but they aren't telling us the whole story on how to use them. Now, you clicked this video because you wanted to know the unpopular truth about AI Max. So here it is. There's a hidden flaw in AI Max that can silently break your entire campaign structure, and there's nothing new about that. We've heard that with Dynamic Search Ads before, and if you don't know about it, I'll share it later. But while Google pushes it as a simple upgrade, just clicking on a button, enabling AI Max's core features can actually make your high-performing campaigns start bidding on low-performing generic keywords, basically wasting your money and limiting smart bidding, and that might be a problem for you. But, and this is important, this does not mean you should ignore AI Max completely. In fact, there's a very specific and slightly strange way to set it up that avoids this flaw while still preparing you for Google's AI future. So stick with me, because by the end of this video, I'm going to show you exactly the setup that I'm now using, and you'll be surprised to learn that it actually involves using the oldest campaign type on this list still. But let's start with a rundown of the 3 campaign types we will cover today. So, Performance Max. It targets all of Google's channels: search, shopping, display, video, Gmail, and Discover. It offers virtually no keyword control, and it functions as a standalone campaign type. Then there's Dynamic Search Ads. It's the oldest of these campaign types. It targets the search network only. It does not use any generative AI. It creates ads by pulling headlines directly from your page titles, and it matches search terms to your website content automatically to try to find out where should it post the ads. Now, this is a keyword-less technology, so when we all go crazy when we hear the word keyword-less technology, Google's been using it for years, and it's also part of standard shopping. Jumping over to AI Max. It is the newest campaign type. Essentially, it's DSA on steroids. It will review landing pages to figure out what search terms or search queries should you show ads for, just like with Dynamic Search Ads. What it also does is that it will also analyze your existing keywords and ad copy to figure out what search terms to also show for. So it's not just the content on your website. It is also going to go in and figure out what keywords do you already have and what do you write in your ads. Now, this functions as an add-on to your existing search campaigns and is not a standalone campaign type, unlike Dynamic Search Ads and Performance Max, which are standalone campaign types. Now, it also features generative AI that writes ads from scratch based on your page content, based on your previous ad content, on user search behavior. Does that mean whatever Google people can search for, get in the ads? That's a little bit vague at the moment, but I doubt that's what's going to be, but I'm a little bit worried. Now, considering Google's campaign types, let's talk a little bit about campaign overlap. So it's important to understand how all these different campaigns interact with each other, because just launching PMax, Dynamic Search Ads, and having AI Max enabled in your existing search campaigns might be too much. These campaigns generally serve different purposes and shouldn't be run simultaneously. I have some different thoughts around that towards the end, but I try not to overcomplicate things here in the beginning. Now, let's start with PMax because it's the simplest thing to talk about. If you're running a full PMax campaign strategy for e-commerce, then you basically don't need anything else. AI Max functionality is already integrated into PMax, so running a separate AI Max campaign or a search campaign with AI Max involved, like that's what it is, provides basically no additional benefit outside the fact that I generally recommend running standalone search campaigns instead of relying on PMax. But again, if you're fully bought into the PMax setup, then there is no need to also do an AI Max. You already have access to the functionality inside of PMax. The same thing, I'll say that if you're running a full PMax setup and you want to run a Dynamic Search Ads, then Dynamic Search Ads is redundant. It's the same thing with AI Max, because it's already included when you have PMax with full assets. Now, if you're running a feed-only PMax strategy, then you do need a complementary search strategy or you're not hitting anything. And that's really where the decision comes down to: will you use a Dynamic Search Ads campaign, or will you use dedicated search campaigns with AI Max enabled, which we'll cover next. I just wanted to clear this out completely. If you run a full PMax campaign, then you don't need the AI Max or Dynamic Search Ads. If you run search campaigns with AI Max enabled, then you don't need Dynamic Search Ads per se. So that's it. So the real question becomes, should you run AI Max or Dynamic Search Ads? Now, there are some nuances to this, but seeing that AI Max will be able to it's the way to enable AI ads in AI mode and AI overview on Google, then I don't see how we can not run AI Max, or how we can not enable it. It therefore becomes more of a question of how do you navigate the problems that AI Max comes with, because there are some problems, then whether or not you should just run one or the other. Now, before we get into the problems with AI Max, I want to highlight an aspect of dynamic search ads that I'm going to miss a lot when we switch over to AI Max, or when you switch over to AI Max. And it has to do with page feeds and URL and content exclusions. Even though it's not my go-to way to use dynamic search ads, then for high SKU stores, page feeds and URL/content exclusions are key to keeping dynamic search ads efficient. Now, let me just show you here. Again, a data feed is there here where we can go in, and we have some data feeds that we've uploaded quite a while ago. And we have the exact page URLs with the different custom labels that we want our dynamic search ads to target. And this way we're able to actually just create different ad groups that target different parts of the site. And that way we're able to focus a little bit more, because again, for this particular ad group structure, we wanted to split out the performance, and there's certain categories and stuff like that on the site we actually don't want to target. Page feeds can be used to tailor where dynamic search ads should go. And this is especially useful when it's easier to tell dynamic search ads what pages do I want to advertise for, instead of going, well, don't go here, don't go here, don't go here. An example of this is if you have a big store, big e-commerce store, then categories or brand pages where 80% of the products are out of stock, we know that's not going to convert very well. Then we can have a page feed where we just include all the category pages with products that are in stock, for instance. Now, if we get over to the URL/content exclusions, that's technically the opposite. This is where we say these are specifically things that we don't want to include. At the current point in time, there's no way to do the same thing with AI Max when it comes to the content exclusion. There is URL exclusion, so that's a nice thing. But think of product pages where the text says it's out of stock, or it's in pre-order, or any other pages that we don't want to advertise for. Out of the box, like I said, we don't get the same exact control with AI Max, but there's some control I just want to just walk through. We have this thing called final URL expansion, and we can enable or disable it. If you disable URL expansion, then AI Max will not expand into other URLs than your ad or keyword URLs. This basically means that you take the dynamic search ads benefits out of AI Max, as it will no longer cover URLs that you're not actively advertising for. And I have a tough time seeing how, when you disable final URL expansion, what's the difference between running AI Max and having broad match in your campaign. I think will be very, very similar. Then there's the feature called URL inclusion. You might think that this is the same as a page feed, and it is relevant to it, but I just don't see the purpose for using URL inclusion in e-com. And the reason why I say in e-com is because I haven't thought about it for other industries. But if you're not advertising for a URL, why would you add them to AI Max? Let's say a subcategory for running shoes. If I don't have it somewhere in my campaign, why would I add them to AI Max through URL inclusion? I just don't see it. Maybe there's some use case that I'm not thinking of. Please put it in the comments. But I just can't picture a campaign structure where that's done. And then there's URL exclusion. This is one I do think can be useful, especially excluding low performing URLs. We know that that's something we have to do in dynamic search ads. However, again, it doesn't appear to be super scalable, as it currently doesn't use page feeds. So that's just a problem that I have overall with the way that AI Max is going to be, because we've learned this from dynamic search ads, that having URL and content exclusions is really something that's important to remove any low performing pages. Now let's jump over to my biggest problem with AI Max, because believe it or not, it's not that we don't have page feeds. So it's going to create a mess with your campaign structure. It's the same reason why I never bought into having dynamic search ad groups enabled in my existing search campaigns. Dynamic search ads could quickly turn a campaign focused on a specific keyword category into any type of keyword it wants. So if we look at it this way, where we say we have 3 different types of keywords, let's say we're targeting Nike running shoes, Nike marathon shoes, Nike CrossFit shoes, and we want to just focus this campaign on Nike, then there's no way for me to say that AI Max will not expand the campaign to show for CrossFit shoes, or shoes for weightlifting, or duffel bag for gym, if those keywords can be found in the URLs that are in the campaign. And that's going to be a problem, because a high ROAS campaign like Nike, if we sell Nike shoes, will then allow AI Max to bid higher for lower performing search terms that we haven't even added to the campaign. Now, if this is just in general, then that might be a good thing, and overall it's not a huge deal. But if you just take a very simple example, then for some e-commerce businesses, there are keyword categories we just don't want to bid for. Let's say in this particular case, I don't want to bid for CrossFit shoes, or there's an entire bucket of keywords like category keywords, CrossFit shoes, running shoes, etc. I don't want to bid for because historically they've never performed for me. Then by enabling AI Max, I can't control for this. And this is where smart bidding starts becoming annoying, because smart bidding will bid for everything. So it's not, I can't close it off. In my opinion, match types are already ruining ad group structure, and now AI Max will ruin your campaign structure. The only solution is to do strict negative keywords to avoid cross cannibalization, but that's also a super bad idea, like I've covered in another video. It's a workaround that's just not gonna hold up. It's not gonna work, and it's just gonna ruin things. So it's gonna be a necessary evil to work with AI Max, and we're just gonna trust that AI Max and smart bidding can handle it. Another issue I have with AI Max is this text asset generation, also known as this is when it writes the ads. Now, there are simply not enough controls built in that it's a good idea at this point in time. I can foresee a scenario where AI Max write an ad where it says save 48% because one product is on sale in a category and says save 48%. And that headline will then take all the spend because the CTR is the highest, but the conversion rates will be really low. So in general, I don't recommend turning on text asset generation, basically allowing AI Max to write headlines, unless you don't touch that part at all. Optimizing your ads with new assets is a good thing, and letting the AI do it, if you never do it, is better than not at all in general, until you see it absolutely ruining something. So what's the recommended setup? I have 3 different scenarios. Scenario number 1, again, like I've said, if you use PMax with a full asset setup, then you don't have to do anything different than what you're doing today. The second one is that if you're not using dynamic search ads already, then enable AI Max, but do not enable final URL expansion. This allows the keyword as targeting to work. It allows you to get into the AI mode and AI overview, but you don't advertise for landing pages that you aren't already advertising for. You can then test enabling final URL expansion. Again, if you have a very big site, then it's a net positive to use dynamic search ads. It more or less always have been, especially combined with smart bidding. So I think it will be a net positive for you. However, if you are using dynamic search ads today, then it becomes a little bit more tricky. But then in my case, I just enable AI mode. I don't use final URL expansion. And it's basically like turning on broad match in the campaign. I will leave the fallback part of finding URLs that I'm not currently advertising for, and very, very long tail keywords. I'll leave that to dynamic search ads like I always have, but I'll take more of the broader search queries and keep in my current campaigns. Again, it's not a perfect scenario, and I can't find a way to get around this ruining of the campaign structure. So it's just going to be something we're going to have to live with. So now I know I started the video with saying that you have no use for dynamic search ads if you enable AI Max, and that's technically still true. But until Google have found a better way to show me that text ad generation is really good, let's say I search for a pair of CrossFit shoes for plantar fasciitis that have a little bit of arch support, then it will be perfect that they can actually show that in the ad specifically for that. That I can see a huge use case for. But until it shows me that, I'm not going to enable that part. But I do foresee a future where enabling AI Max fully will actually provide quite substantial performance increases. It's just not quite there yet as of 2025. And I will believe this goes into early 2026 as well. But having this setup where we enable AI Max in the campaign, but we don't take on final URL expansion, we do not add text ad generation, it allows us to use AI Max to target more AI queries, and it allows DSA to continue to be this fallback campaign. So let me know how you're using AI Max, and if you can see any issues with what I'm doing so far. AI Max is still new for a lot of us, so please let your thoughts be known. If you're into practical PPC insights that you can actually help you, then subscribe. I share tips, breakdowns, and call out what's working and what's not. No fluff, just the stuff that you can use every single week.